a delicious bakery donut fried to golden perfection, topped with a dollop of jam and freshly whipped cream. But what if I told you that the component used to make the cream has quietly become one of New Zealand's fastest growing drugs? This documentary aims to present an honest and unfiltered account of the case surrounding the history of nangs and the rise of recreational nitrous oxide use across New Zealand. Nitrous oxide is a colorless gas with a faintly sweet smell and has been part of human society for more than 170 years. First synthesized in 1772 by English chemist Joseph Priestley, its anesthetic properties weren't widely recognized until the 1840s. But long before then, nitrous oxide parties were already sweeping through British upper class and intellectual circles. Scientists and poets would gather to inhale the gas from green silk bags, descending into fits of euphoria and public giggles for the entertainment of onlookers. Today, however, the gas is primarily valued for its rapid onset and short duration, making it widely used for pain relief and sedation in dentistry and childbirth. By the mid-1990s, the gas had found a second home in the culinary world. Known in the catering industry as a propellant, nitrous oxide is used to aerate or whip cream and mousses. Small, pressurized canisters, typically containing 8.5 grams of gas, are inserted into specialized dispensers to create the whipped textures found in bakeries and cafes across the country. For decades, this was the extent of its presence, a useful medical tool and a baker's assistant. Yet the very same properties that made it a success at the 18th century nitrous parties and in modern clinics have also made it a prime target for recreational abuse. When inhaled, the gas displaces oxygen in the lungs and bloodstream, producing a short-lived high that can include sound distortion, dissociation, and mild hallucinations. This quote-unquote laughing gas remained a relatively niche, low-level concern in New Zealand until the early 2000s, when it began to migrate from clinics and the kitchen into the party scene. Depending on where you are in the world, nitrous oxide is known by many different names, including hippie crack and nos, but in Australia and New Zealand, it is most commonly referred to as nangs, a term believed to come from the distinctive high-pitched, distorted, oscillating sound that users hear while under the influence of the gas. The modern crisis surrounding nangs didn't arrive overnight. It was born in the Wild West 2000s era of New Zealand's legal highs. Back then, nitrous oxide was the silent partner to the BZP party pill craze, a quick 30-second buzz that was treated like a harmless party trick. The most common method of recreational use is to dispense nitrous oxide into a balloon, then repeatedly inhale and exhale the gas from it. This is typically done in one of two ways: by releasing the gas from the small bulbs through an empty whipped cream dispenser with a balloon attached to the nozzle, or by using a device known as a cracker, which punctures the canister directly and fills the balloon. A landmark 2002 survey of first-year students at the University of Auckland captured this early rise. It found that more than half of those surveyed were aware of recreational nitrous oxide use, 12% had tried the gas recreationally, and 3% were using it regularly on a monthly basis. In Christchurch, a business called The Lab became the face of a new brazen industry, the 24-hour NOS bar. Here, patrons didn't buy canisters, they bought shots of nitrous gas served in balloons. The government's response was swift. In 2005, authorities used the Medicines Act to raid these bars, declaring that selling nitrous oxide for inhalation made it an unapproved medicine. But while the NOS bars vanished, the gas certainly didn't, forcing recreational users back to sourcing it themselves. For the next 15 years, New Zealand entered what could be described as the silver bulb era, a period marked by the clinking of discarded 8-gram canisters in gutters, car parks, and roadside drains. Local dairies became some of the main suppliers, sold in small cardboard boxes containing anywhere from 10 to 50 bulbs. These cream chargers were, and still are, marketed as catering supplies, often under an unspoken don't ask, don't tell arrangement. So as long as the box was labeled catering supplies, everything was all good. But in reality, many of the same shops selling the chargers also stocked whipped cream dispensers, balloons, and in some cases even crackers. And if those items were not sitting out in the open, regular users often knew to ask, because a lot of the time, even if they weren't openly displayed, they were sitting close by behind the counter. Even when the Psychoactive Substances Act was passed in 2013, to wipe out synthetic cannabis, its status as a legitimate culinary product left it standing on the shelf. The loophole didn't stop at the dairy. From the NOS bar era onward, late-night and 24-hour delivery services surfaced intermittently, selling cream chargers under the same paper-thin catering excuse, an Uber-style model where the gas could be ordered to your door almost as easily as ordering Macca's. Beginning in the early 2020s, The nitrous market underwent a dramatic and largely unregulated transformation. The familiar silver bulbs, which required constant effort to crack and inhale, were increasingly replaced by industrial-scale cylinders. Some held up to 3.3 liters of nitrous oxide, the equivalent of hundreds of silver bulbs, with a nozzle fitted directly to the top, ready to dispense the gas. Alongside the shift in canister size came a shift in demographic. What had once seemed more closely tied to niche university party culture was now turning up in neighbourhoods across South Auckland. In a Radio New Zealand news article, Manurewa local board chairman Matt Winiata highlighted the scale of the issue, pointing to the number of empty canisters scattered throughout the community. He warned that the imagery on some of the larger bottles mimicked video game-style artwork, saying it was identical to what you would find on Grand Theft Auto, and questioned why a so-called hospitality product was being packaged in a way that so clearly appealed to young people. Auckland Councillor Julie Ferry said the problem echoed the vaping epidemic and stated that the industry was getting ahead of regulation. In the background, both the original 8.5-gram cream chargers and the newer oversized canisters were becoming increasingly commonplace in vape stores and smoke shops, often sold quietly and with little open advertising. Besides the visible litter and the eyesore of the discarded products, the health-related issues linked to NANGs are far more sinister, and by 2023, the medical costs became impossible to ignore. Auckland City Hospital began reporting a terrifying surge in NANG myelopathy. Young Kiwis were arriving in the emergency room with their spinal cords essentially short-circuiting. Though the gas itself is classed as relatively safe when used under professional medical guidance, the method of recreational administration is truly damning. In a controlled clinical setting, it's administered as a mixture, usually 50% oxygen and 50% nitrous oxide, which helps ensure the patient remains conscious and adequately oxygenated. But in recreational use, that oxygen mix is typically absent. When someone huffs from a balloon, they are inhaling near pure nitrous oxide, so by repeatedly breathing the same gas in and out, the user can enter a state of hypoxia. The lightheadedness, euphoria, and those signature wah-wah sound distortions aren't just a buzzy high. They are the physical symptoms of the brain being starved of oxygen. While the immediate danger is fainting or blacking out, the long-term neurological damage happens at a molecular level. Nitrous oxide inactivates vitamin B12 in the body, which is essential for maintaining the myelin sheath, aka the protective coating around your nerves. For some, months of high-dose B12 injections can help repair the damage. For others, particularly chronic users, it ends in permanent nerve damage and a life confined to a wheelchair. But the true catalyst was not the slow, private damage happening behind closed doors. It was a devastating crash on State Highway 3 in May 2024 that dragged the issue into national view. The crash claimed 5 lives: 19-year-old driver Piata Otufangavalu, her partner Suliasi Lafai, and their friend Cheyenne Love Mitchell. In the oncoming vehicle, Paul and Lois Grimmer, a retired couple, were killed instantly. In the wreckage of the Toyota, police discovered 2 large 640-gram nitrous canisters and an open packet of green balloons, while witnesses reported seeing the young occupants of the Toyota inhaling from balloons only minutes before the impact. Nitrous oxide presented a very different challenge to investigators. Unlike the cannabis found in the driver's system, it could not be easily detected through traditional testing or forensic pathology, because the gas leaves the body so quickly. Proving acute impairment at the exact moment of a crash in relation to NANGs was nearly impossible. The public pressure reached a boiling point after coroner Matthew Bates released his findings, ruling that despite the lack of a positive blood test for the gas, the physical evidence made it clear that the driver was significantly impaired by nitrous oxide when she crossed the center line. The tragedy forced a total overhaul of how the substance was treated, and in September 2024, Health Minister Shane Reti announced a change in how the substance was viewed. The government moved nitrous oxide from a regulatory grey area directly under the Psychoactive Substances Act, with serious penalties for suppliers jumping to $500,000 and prison sentences of up to 2 years. The enforcement of these new laws reached a critical milestone in March 2026, centering on a courtroom in Rotorua. A man in his 30s, currently granted interim name suppression, became one of the first retailers in the country to be charged under the new change. Though the man's lawyer, Tumanako Silveira, entered no plea to the charge on behalf of his client during the initial appearance, the prosecution's stance was clear. Superintendent Will Loughran alleged that the vendor had shown a complete disregard for the law by continuing to sell the substance for recreational use despite repeated police warnings. "We took a planned prevention approach, and this shows that if retailers ignore us, we will follow through with enforcement action," he stated. The man is currently remanded on bail and is scheduled to reappear in court on March 27, 2026. Besides the blatant video game-style packaging used to attract young buyers, The operation revealed other predatory business tactics utilized by these nitrous companies. In vape shops across the country, workers have admitted to stocking flavored canisters like peach ice and lemon cola, eerily familiar flavor profiles already popular with the vaping generation. These flavors hold no relevance to traditional whipped cream preparation, but instead appear to borrow the same marketing logic that helped hook a new demographic on nicotine, now repurposed to sell industrial quantities of nitrous oxide. In February 2026, Health Minister Simeon Brown confirmed that officials are once again examining new, specific legislative hurdles. This includes capping the size of canisters sold for hospitality use to effectively ban the 3.3-liter party tanks that have fueled the recent surge in abuse. Matt Winiata suggests the same of capping canister sizes and further proposed a series of restrictions to protect the community. This included requiring minimum quantity sales to create a cost barrier for young people, restricting supply exclusively to licensed businesses with established 12-month sales records, and introducing plain packaging rules to finally stop the predatory marketing aimed at the youth. If we can't outlaw these products, then they should at least be capped, controlled, and recorded, he stated. The legacy of recreational nitrous oxide in New Zealand is a story of unintended consequences and regulatory gaps. What began as a tool for bakeries became a catalyst for neurological decay and fatal road accidents. In a controlled environment and in low, moderate doses, most drug experts consider nitrous oxide to be less harmful than vaping or alcohol. But with the rise of the party-sized canisters and flavored variants, the recent crackdown was inevitable. As of March 2026, the canisters are still available, with retailers still profiting under the guise of catering products. But as we've seen with just about any other issue specifically surrounding substance abuse, simply trying to arrest your way out of the problem will never solve it. What are your thoughts on recreational nitrous use, and have you or anyone close to you personally experienced the effects of NANGs? Are the proposed changes suitable alterations to the law, or are further restrictions required to ensure the community is safe? Share your perspectives in the comments below. If you found this documentary informative, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more in-depth explorations of often overlooked, lesser-known stories. Who else would you like to see us detail next? Your engagement helps us continue to shed light on otherwise unheard narratives.